Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, how you doing?
Live from Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right.
In the same room. I'm looking him directly in the eyes. This is something we never do. And
the second time ever. For the second time ever.
Second time ever. It's my first time, for those who don't know, because I did announce on Twitter the other day, it's my first time in Phoenix in 3 years, which I'll start off by saying is entirely too long. First of all, I'd like everyone to give me some credit because the Suns went 3-0 this week, and I was at all 3 games.
Yes.
So you can thank me for that later. But yeah, it's been absolutely great to kick it here with you, man. Honestly, some guys I want to shout out real quick. I was just at the Valley Suns game. We're recording this Monday night. Made sure to check out some Suns games, but also made sure to check out a Valley Suns game, and we had a few members of our Discord in there. I'm just going to use their Discord names. So Country K, Gundy, and Kai, shout out to you guys for joining me at that game. I think we were 4 of about 250 people in attendance, and the Valley Suns lost by 2 points. Ty Washington was going off, though. But, yeah, just in general, it's been awesome to be out here this week, do all sorts of touristy stuff, and, of course, watch the Suns win a bunch of times.
You came out here for the warm weather. And today maybe was the coldest day of the year. I woke up, it was 29 degrees this morning.
Coldest day for you guys, but believe it or not, 29 degrees, if that's the low, is higher than the high in Rochester, New York, where I live for, most of the year. So yeah, this has been absolutely awesome weather for me. I've enjoyed being outside, being in the sun.
A lot has happened since the last time we recorded. You flew here, obviously. You got here. We watched 3 games. The Suns were under 500 when you got here, are now 500. Nurkic was nurked completely off the team, no longer on the team, essentially. Not only did he not play any of the games that we watched in person, he is now, quote-unquote, tested positive for the flu and is not traveling with the team on this current road trip. And even if he was, he's probably not going to play anyway. Brad was benched. We talked about that a little bit on our last Patreon podcast.
Just a little, yeah.
But Brad hasn't played out of the starting lineup this entire time. So much to talk about. First of all, you went to 3 games. Let's start there. How was your experience going? We went together.
Yes.
And we made jokes about it online that we didn't go together, but we went together.
We did go together.
To all 3 games. So.
Yep.
What'd you think?
So we got to sit all around the arena, upper level, lower level. I think the thing I'd start with, obviously, this is my first time in the Suns arena since Matt Ishbia took over, and I'm not going to give him credit for just like everything, but because there were renovations made in the past few years that were not implemented by Ishbia, but I will say multiple occasions where I paid $6 for dinner because I got a hot dog. I either got 2 hot dogs and a bottle of water, or I got the hot dog, the chips, and the bottle of water. Shout out to Matt. That's the best thing you've done since you've come in. It ranks easily above the KD trade for me. And I don't care if I catch any flack for that. I thought the fan experience at the arena is really good right now. I thought the energy was really good, both for the fans and the team, obviously. Like, I thought the team looked connected, playing together in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time. I think we're going to talk about it in more detail, and like obviously the level of competition of teams they were playing was not great, and it doesn't mean that everything is fixed and they're entirely back. We know that. But you got to play who's in front of you. They were able to get some wins. The fans seemed into it. They seemed excited, with the one exception being the Charlotte game.
Yeah.
Where we were sitting in a lower level section, and I think everyone, like 90% of the people around us, left with about 5 minutes left in that game because the Suns were still down by like 8 or 10 points, and they were able to eke that one out and win by 7.
And it was the most exciting one that we saw. I think the crowd that stayed, which was most of the crowd, just not anyone near us, which was nice, actually. We had a lot of room. But the crowd that stayed was really locked in at the end of that game. I think the most exciting of all the games we went to was that game, to be
KD fourth quarter takeover too.
True.
We really got to win.
And Royce O'Neal, his return game, making the most important shot of the game. It's fun to be that close and to be in the arena. It is hard to be too excited about winning against the 8-win team in the Charlotte Hornets, but like we'll take them where we can get them. And I think the first place I want to talk about, since we saw all 3 games, is Devin Booker, because Devin Booker, I think, did you fix? Do you want to take credit? Did you fix Devin Booker?
No, I'm not gonna take credit for that. I'm not gonna take credit for Book. I was a little bit openly worried about Book last week, not in kind of the sense of like he's, how old is Book? 28. Yeah. Like he's 28 and his career is over. He's cooked. It wasn't like that, but just more so the sense of like, I feel it's fair to say that this has been his worst season in quite some time. And, maybe there have been some things that have been nagging at him for quite a while, but then he responds with, I would say, the best week he's had all season.
Yeah.
4 good games in a row.
Yeah.
And granted, none of them were, he had a couple opportunities maybe to get to 40 in these games, and he didn't, right? There wasn't a 40 or 50 point explosion or whatever, but 4 good games in a row, even in games where like the Atlanta Hawks game where he shot 0 for 8 from 3. He was just a masterful playmaker, killing them in the mid-range against multiple defensive coverages. So he found other ways to contribute. And then he would come out right on the next game. I can't remember the next game. Was at Utah on Saturday. And most of his, having gone 0 for 8 the previous night, most of his attempts were threes. And he made 50% of them. And so I thought we saw a lot of all different sides of Book this week, and it accumulated in just a really, really strong week. I'd be curious if he's one of the favorites for Player of the Week.
That's
here. We haven't heard
yeah.
about that yet, but
3-0 in the week. We're looking at the last 3 games alone, but 3-0 in those 3 games, 28 points per game. And let's see, how many assists there? 8 assists, so 28 and 8 over that time period. Only 2 turnovers per game. That's really good. Overall, his 3-point shooting was up and down, like you talked about it. He had his career high. In the first game we went to, he had his career high in missed threes without a make, which
Hell
was,
yeah.
just missed every single 3-pointer. And then at a certain point, it felt like he was making every single mid-range shot in that game. But just continues his really, really great playmaking this season. The 8 assists to 2 turnovers over that week is really good. They were also just kind of like, every time he was on the court, they were kind of beating the other team pretty regularly. Ended plus 7.3 is what it says here, which is really great. Not anywhere close to what Royce O'Neal was in his one game where he came through and just activated his plus-minus powers, and those continue to work on this in this last week. But yeah, Devin Booker, crossing our fingers, hopefully he's back.
Yeah, hopefully. Right? And obviously, it's unreasonable of us to expect this to be the standard every game for Book, but I do think as we're talking about like trends, it is interesting, right? Because it's really more and more turning the team back over to Book being the offensive engine and being point Book, right? That's what it's been. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that here, as Book has maybe his best week of the season, it's an absolutely, to be a little negative, a brutal week for Tyus Jones, who, is increasingly seeing his touches limited. I think he's still really important is the thing. I think he still clearly has a value, a tangible value that he brings to this team, a steadying presence. And part of the issue is, Tyus has been so good as a catch and shoot guy this season. And this week, it just so happened he was missing those shots. I think if he was making the corner threes that normally he has the confidence to make and take, then we wouldn't be having the discussion about how poorly he was performing. But if you're going to put the ball in Devin Booker's hands, as they should, because they play at their best when Booker is really the one making those decisions throughout the majority of the game, then Tyus needs to make his shots or else he's not really doing anything out there.
Yeah, I think you could kind of ask what's the point of Tyus in the starting lineup at this point. And that doesn't mean to necessarily put Brad in it. I know, although Brad's been pretty good lately, we'll talk about him in just a minute, but I think you almost question if you could put somebody like Royce in there instead. If you're just going to be a catch and shoot off the ball, catch it from the corner, catch it from the top of the key, and then launch, and you're not doing a ton of playmaking, maybe it should be Royce in there. But I think I think they're going to have a stretch coming up soon where Tyus actually plays well in that starting role, and I think we'll see how good it can actually look, because in these games they did win, but 3 bad teams. So to mention,
they played Atlanta without Jalen Johnson. They played Utah without Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, and Keontae George.
Yeah.
And then they played Charlotte, who are fully healthy, but they're terrible.
Yeah.
So really not the best competition that we could be measuring up against. I think they've got a really important 5-game road trip coming up. I have I'm not afraid to admit it, virtually zero confidence that they could take down the Cleveland Cavaliers. That happens in about a week from now. On the road. If they take down the Cavs on the road, then we're officially back. That would be that would be a huge inflection point on the season. But even outside of the Cavs, even if you assume that that's a loss, another game against Atlanta, a game against Detroit, who've been good lately and are 500 this season, and then 2 absolutely you must win these games against the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards. And I think that the standard needs to be at least 3-2 in these next 5 games to see some positive momentum.
Hoping that Grayson can get back too, because Grayson really came on this week. He had a really, really good week. He was one of the better players, I think, on the Suns over these last few games, and then missed the second half of the Charlotte game with knee soreness, which Bud said after the game is something that they've been managing apparently all season, and it just got to the point in that game where he couldn't stay on the floor anymore. But in that week, he was shooting 54% from 3 and just really launching. He had some really long threes coming around screens, launching as soon as he caught the ball, shooting them a little contested, even had a 4-point play on one of them because he wasn't afraid to shoot when somebody was closing out, which has been a huge problem. Particularly, we talked about it. It is funny. We talked about how they weren't playing Bud ball. They weren't shooting a lot of threes. You got to factor in that Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen weren't playing some of those games.
Of course.
They come back all of a sudden. Now they're shooting a lot more threes, but man, does it make a difference to see them.
Grayson is probable, according to the most recent update that Dwayne posted today. Dwayne Rankin, of course, on Twitter. So that hopefully we see him tomorrow. And yeah, I think those are just the constant, the levers that Bud has to pull this year, because we all love Josh Okogie, who of course is kind of out of the rotation again. And we all love Ryan Dunn, and at times their energy is just absolutely essential for this team, and they really can't survive without it. I mean, their defense crumbles without those 2 guys. And at other times, it's Royce's spacing and Grayson's spacing, and I think those guys can sometimes bring the defensive intensity, but for the most part, they don't really, at least not on the consistent basis that a guy like Ryan or a guy like Josh does. So for Bud, these are the questions that he has to answer. And frankly, this is probably more the type of stuff that Bud wants to be tasked with. Should I play Ryan Dunn? Should I play Grayson Allen? Versus some of the annoying BS tasks that he's actually tasked with at the moment, such as, what do I say to the media about why Yusuf Nurkic is not traveling with the team?
Right.
Some of the extracurricular activities that, unfortunately, if you're an NBA coach, it's no secret that you have to manage egos. But I definitely think there's been a lot put on Bud's plate for this team to make it seem like they're not, slipping pretty far.
Two new starters now, right? We've had enough games to now really think about it. 5 games with the 2 new starters, but in some sense, 3 new starters, because in the second half of the Charlotte game, Oso Ighodaro started with the actual starters, and then Mason Plumlee came off the bench. There was a stretch there in the first 2 games where we were like, okay, Mason, he doesn't look good, doesn't look at the rim, doesn't really shoot much at all, but the numbers were looking good with him on the floor, and that cratered a little bit when Mark Williams got every single rebound in the first half of the Charlotte game. You know, this is one of those weeks, I think, where, you know, the Suns kind of looked good, but like through all the times that the poor play from the centers have stood out, I think winning games without them doing anything at all almost made it stand out a little bit more, because it's like, how good can they be?
That's the question.
If they had a center. And this is not to take anything away from Oso Ighodaro's second half in the Charlotte game, where he did play well, but like you can't expect a lot. First of all, you can't expect a lot of rebounding out of him. We've learned that. We're not going to expect that anymore. It's just, you know, over time he might get better at rebounding, but it's usually not a skill where you get dramatically better over the course of your career.
He is at 8.1 per 36 minutes on the season.
It's better than I expected.
I would honestly say 8 per 36 for a guy of his size. He's 6'10", I don't know, 230. What is he listed at?
Yeah.
It's about what you can expect from him. But look, if there's anything you can say about Nurk and Plumlee, they rebound the ball way better than that. And so that's just something you have to expect with Oso. You're right. He had a really good second half against Charlotte, but he was also kind of, and this isn't taking anything away from him, it's just how good Kevin Durant is. He was sort of just sitting in the dunker spot, waiting for the double team to come on the post catch. And then he was the beneficiary of that. You know, sometimes this has been a criticism of ours levied towards KD. Sometimes those plays are turnovers. In this game against Charlotte, they were not. KD's playmaking was awesome, and he made the right read every time, and a lot of times that was to Oso sitting in the dunker spot, and he got a dunk. But it's not automatic with Oso as just like a lob threat, right? You can see Booker turn the corner on screens, and he looks at Oso, and they've tried a couple times to throw lobs towards him, and he is athletic. He does have that vertical, but like, it would be a lot easier if Oso was 7'1", and the guys all know that. If Oso were 7'1", he's probably a lottery pick with how smart and skilled he is. He's gonna continue to have those limitations, and that's why, you know, no secret with this team that their center rotation sucks. Mm-hmm. The only way out of it, I think we all increasingly realize, is to kind of look at external solutions.
You see anyone at the G League game that could play center on the Suns?
Actually, it's
either team.
Funny you mentioned that. Quentin Post, who I think was drafted in the past year, he played at Boston College. He was like a 5-year college player. He played for the Warriors. Don't even remember. Where are they from?
Santa Cruz, I think.
Santa Cruz Warriors. Thank you. And dropped 30 points on us and spreads the floor. Okay. So I was impressed with Quentin Post. Mamadi Diakite and Tyrese Samuel are the Suns guys in the G League. I would say they actually played both pretty well, but I'm not sure they're ready for prime time.
Yeah.
We do have an open roster spot though, so one has to think. If there's anyone, just, you know, the real quick aside, if there's anyone on that team who looks ready for the NBA, Ty Washington is a bucket.
Yeah.
Dude. Jalen Bridges, I was watching Jalen Bridges really closely too, and he's obviously got defensive chops. They really don't run anything for him on offense. This is actually something I was talking about with the Discord guys, but like they don't run anything for him on offense outside of like catch and shoot threes, and it makes you wonder if just watching him in practice, they have any confidence that he can kind of do that.
You can make a career out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, but you know, when I've watched him a little bit, not to get too off field from what we're talking about here, and I'm just not fully convinced that he's got defensive chops yet, but maybe in that game he showed a little bit more than what I've
G League
seen.
is different, you know. It's a whole different.
And the thing about Ty too is, can he do that while being a role player? Like, this is the question for a lot of these guys, right? Because you can score a lot like that if you have the ball in your hands a lot. And you play a little bit like Russell Westbrook, which he kind of does. But can you also be an effective role player? Because
Reed Shepherd just dropped 50 in the G League last week. And that's why I would really encourage all of you guys. I had a blast at this G League game, and there were only like 300 people there. Mullen Arena has capacity for at least 3,000. So I would really encourage all of you to go. It was a really fun time. And you're so close to the players, and they're so good. But obviously, there's still a big skill gap between them. And, oh, you know who's there, actually? And then I promise we'll get back on topic.
That's right.
Kevin Knox
That's right.
Catching the ball. He was playing for Santa Cruz. Catching the ball 18, 20 feet out, jab stepping, just taking his G League mid-range Jimbos. That was fun to watch. He wasn't their leading scorer or anything, but yeah, that's probably the most well-known guy there.
That must suck.
The 2018 draft.
To be that guy,
Kevin Knox was the 10th pick in the 2018 draft.
Yikes.
And if you go back and look at the 2018 draft, I would actually encourage people to do this. Sneakily, not even sneakily, because that was the Luka draft. That was the trade draft.
Was that an important draft? Yeah. There was one other player drafted that draft, I think.
Okay, I know what you mean, but at least DA is an NBA player.
For now.
The first round of the 2018 draft, if you just go and look, the Suns actually
ridiculous.
They have two other guys, Josh Okogie and Grayson Allen, who were taken in the late first round of that draft back-to-back, who are both on the team. The first round of that draft is so strong. Just packed to the brim with guys who became good NBA role players. And then there's 4 or 5 names like Kevin Knox. So it's hard to be one of those guys, but there he is.
I do want to give Mason Plumlee credit for how he played in the first 2 games of this week in Atlanta and Utah. I think he really battles defensively. I think he's better than Nurkic. Where at least he has been in the last few games. I'm not sure he is better than Nurkic. Nurkic just makes so many mistakes, whereas Mason, he just can't get up off the ground anymore. It's pretty clear he can't get up off the ground anymore. I mean, how many times was Mason blocked in the last 3 games? 4 or 5 times, and that's a huge dude getting blocked over and over again.
Was it Mark Williams or Nick Richards who had a savage block on him?
I think it was Mark Williams.
Mark Williams. Yeah. Looked like, and this is part of the greater problem, it wasn't just Mason. It was also when Oso was matched up against him, but Mark Williams looked like Wilt Chamberlain against the Suns in the first half of that game. Credit to the Suns, I suppose. He was on pace for 40 and 20 at one point.
It's really interesting.
And he finished with 24 and 16, which is still way too much for Mark Williams.
Right.
But he was on pace for a prime Anthony Davis, 40 and 20 with 5 blocks, and a lot of that was because Mason Plumlee could not contain him.
Really interesting decision by Monty to counter that by putting a smaller player on him and then switching everything so that they have essentially or by Bud. Did I say Monty?
You said Monty.
I'm thinking about Monty lately. That's funny. By Bud to actually make that decision and actually force those guys to fight, because really what it ended up being is guys like Booker and KD out there fighting because they're the ones getting screened and they have to switch, and Oso out there on the perimeter getting attacked over and over and over again by Brandon Miller or LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo, yeah,
and
tough cover.
And Oso did a good job. More than anything, he did a pretty good job out there on the perimeter. That's what he has to do. He's not big enough to battle on the inside, so he has to be effective as a perimeter defender. And look, it's against Charlotte, but we'll take it. Anything. These guys are young, so you just want to see some level of improvement for them going forward. Would you start Oso going forward?
Man,
thought about that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Truth be told, haven't thought about it. I think it's interesting that in the last game, Oso was the guy who finished with basically 30 minutes, Mason 15. I don't think you have anything to lose by starting Oso, because if you lose games, at least you're developing Oso. And how far? I guess here's the question, right? How far do we expect this team to go either way if that's your center rotation?
Yeah.
Whether it's Mason getting 24 and Oso getting 24, or Oso getting 30 and Mason gets 18, you're probably going about the same distance. And I think there are just fundamental skills that they're missing out of the center rotation. A, guy who can catch lob, who is, taller than 6'10", and B, guy who can shoot 3, which is something we know Bud has always craved, that they just don't have.
Yeah.
And what's even more fun is potentially if they get one of those guys who can do one of those things, and they don't lose Oso in the process, which I sure as hell hope they don't, then Oso can play power forward. Oso and Mason can't play together, obviously, because they have the same exact offensive skill set where they move the ball side to side, and just Oso has the floater. That's about it.
Well, Oso can still jump, so if he catches it near the rim, it's just he never really goes near the rim.
Right.
That's, to give him credit in the Charlotte game, he was in the right spots.
I think the thing is, you think about what are Bud's options right now. Another guy he clearly doesn't want to play is Bol. Should I say it?
We were there.
Okay, we were there. I think I got a little bit of insight being at the games this week into why Bol, despite being so clearly talented, doesn't play. And we always talk about how we're not at practice, so we don't know what goes on at practice. That's true. But like, just watch the players warm up the next time you're at a game. What I saw, and I looked at this in multiple games, not just one, because I wanted to see if it was a trend. Bol knows he's not going to play. And so they're warming up. Like the rest of the guys, they're taking their layups. They're maybe dunking in layup lines.
Yeah.
You know, if they're star players, if you're Booker, if you're Kevin Durant, maybe you're practicing some like self-created one-on-one work.
Or getting stretched out. Or like, you know, they're doing some stuff to actually get their bodies ready.
And then Bol is taking like 18-foot one-handed floaters, like something he would never be allowed to do in a game if he got minutes. And I get it. It's hard when you've only played a handful of games all season.
Yeah.
But you have to stay ready because that could so easily, especially with Nurkic sitting now, like he's not that deep down into the depth chart. He could play. And the fact that like I like Bol, but you see that lack of preparation there and you can't help but think to yourself, yeah, that's why the coach doesn't play him, because it looks like he's not taking it seriously.
There's some element of that's not when they're really warming up anyway, but there's something about doing that with everyone watching too. Like we're there and there's fans watching. I saw him at one point take an underhanded 3-point attempt from the corner.
Yeah.
Just like, what are you doing? Like you're going to shoot a finger roll from the corner at this point in the middle of warming up?
The way that connects to my previous point is if Bud doesn't want to play Bol and he can't play Nurkic now, and we're looking at all of these lineups where basically there's a guy at power forward who's like 6'4". It's like Royce or Grayson or Book or someone who's playing power forward, and all of these lineups just look so small. If you got somehow a center who could shoot the occasional three, who's not Nurkic, who's shooting 25% from three, then suddenly Oso can play power forward. And if Oso can play power forward, then you're much bigger. You have way more scheme versatility.
You're really interesting, too.
Way more defensive versatility, too.
Some Dario Saric, at power forward types of things that can happen there, which weren't always good, but sometimes were. Like with Frank, it was good when they played together. We're going to talk about Nick Richards, Duop Reith, and maybe more in a minute. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about the team as since we're kind of on top of this. Are you still, or how are you feeling about the idea of just banishing Nurkic entirely? Like, we haven't really talked about this because it's just a really fascinating. I didn't expect it at all. Like, I didn't see it coming at all. Like, I like the idea of him coming off the bench. Like I thought, okay, cool. He can't really sink the starters, and maybe there's a role for him in a way that he can be beneficial just by being gigantic coming off of the bench and just kind of, I don't know, maybe they could find something where he's passing the ball a little bit more and you can use some of his skills a little better when he's not playing with Tyus or hiding his defensive shortcomings when you don't have Tyus guarding the ball. But, Monty thought, or I'm saying Monty again. Bud thought.
You're thinking about Monty because the last time
you were talking about Monty.
The last time we recorded in the same room, we were talking about
Monty.
Monty.
It was a whole different house. Now Bud thought it's just better to just not have him there at all.
It's crazy because, it just makes you, like, you can't help but respect Bradley Beal a little bit more for the way those two guys have handled the challenge of going to the bench in the past week and a half.
Yeah.
Brad has, I still wouldn't like him if he did this, but he has way more right to be a diva about this. And he just hasn't. He's come off the bench. He's embraced the role. He also knows, with regards to all the trade stuff, that he holds the cards.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of that.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
And he's still making $50 million.
And he's still making $50 million, but Nurk's making $20 million. Yeah. So does he really have a right to complain?
That's actually kind of crazy, right? To think about that at this point.
The fact that Nurk, with a guy with his skill level, which is far below that of Bradley Beal's, is the guy who's acting out like this. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, what if he actually has the flu? A lot of people have the flu right now. He doesn't have the flu.
We don't know for sure, but yeah.
He doesn't have the flu. He looked fine. And then the first game they announced him out was a back-to-back. He's fine.
I don't know. I don't know if he's fine or not, but
I'll be the one to speculate since clearly you're afraid of.
Well, I'll do some speculation right now. It makes me, the fact that they didn't want him to play at all makes me wonder if something else is happening behind the scenes with him attitude-wise. Like, that's where my speculation goes in this. Not necessarily that he's completely faking the flu or something like that, But I
He has
just
the
wonder
man
if he's
flu.
been a problem. Like there was a report as part of Chris Haynes' report about the Suns moving Nurkic and Bradley Beal to the bench. There was also some reports about people not being happy in the locker room. And, there was some speculation as to who that was. I think everyone thinks of the big three first, right? Is it Brad? That's where everyone's speculation went. Is it KD? Is it Book? They're not happy with how it's going. Hopefully it's all three of them to some extent. But now I'm wondering, was it Nurkic the whole time? Like he's said that he's playing a role. He says this to Kellen. He says this to Gerald. He's playing a role that he doesn't really like, but that he'll try to do.
They
it
want
anyway.
me to be KD. Yeah. And this is the thing. He's been the guy talking crazy all year.
Yeah.
Book, regardless of what they all think behind the scenes, and we don't know, Book has always been, I'm going to compartmentalize. I'm not going to, I'm going to give my media trained answers, and I'm not going to worry about what people are saying to me online. That's one school of thought. School of thought number 2 is KD. KD is very active. He's very aware of what's going online. But frankly, honestly, I think KD does it in a way that's self-aware. I think he does it in a way where he's clearly taking the piss out of fans and having fun with it. He doesn't let it affect his game. He doesn't really let it affect his mindset. Mm-hmm. He goes on Twitter to troll you guys because he thinks it's funny. Yeah. And it is. A lot of the time.
He doesn't have a wife.
Okay. But like, honestly, it is funny. And I think, you can argue, like, is KD, do you still think he's too online or whatever? But I think he's self-aware. Nurk is not. Yeah, Nurk goes online because it makes him angry. And I guess he, like, in some corner of his brain, he thinks that fuels him. But
a lot of people do think that way. So,
but you can tell in the way he responds to people, whether it's mass blocking sections of Suns Twitter or, like, quote tweeting, neutral beat reporters or whatever it is. You can tell
with a baseball reference he doesn't even understand.
Right. You can tell that he thinks that this is some sort of like competitive spirit coming out of him, but it's not making his play better. It just makes him look like a defensive loser. And so, look, maybe he does have the flu, but with everything he's done this season, with everything we know about Nurk behind the scenes, it just feels like if anyone on this team is the head case.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say it at this point. I think we all kind of understand that this thing, maybe not the whole thing, the whole team doesn't have to blow up, but this thing has run its course.
They got to get rid of him. Yeah, I've even gotten to the point where I'm like, what am I willing to sacrifice just to get rid of that contract and him in the locker room at this point? And look, I'm not willing to go there yet. I didn't put any fake trades together or something, but like it would be awful to sacrifice 2031 and that pick at this point.
Yeah.
Depending on the trade, admittedly, like if they found a good player, I don't know, maybe I would do it, but it's just an awful asset. It's a weirdly, just him rotting on the bench might actually improve his trade value because of how poorly he was playing. Maybe somebody can talk themselves into him being more like he was last year, because the more you watch him this year, the more you believe that player no longer exists. Oh, maybe it's better. They go on this road trip without him if he's a problem in the locker room, which we don't know. But if he is, they go on this road trip without him. Maybe the vibes start going up. The rookies are really bringing it. Like Ryan Dunn, also one of the other starters, has been awesome as a starter so far. Look, you're not going to expect him to score every game, but he does occasionally. Like he occasionally hits threes. He does all of the dirty work stuff. He's out there chasing guys around. He guarded a whole bunch. He guarded Lauri Markkanen and LaMelo Ball. Like,
I don't have the stats pulled up, but I think he averaged like 12, 13 points per game this week. Like he hit a good amount of threes. He had a couple self-created buckets. And you've got both stars, Book and KD, complimenting profusely those two guys, Oso being the other one, obviously, after the game, saying that when they're on the court, they're mature. And that then they come off the court and they show their age. That was a direct quote from Book. I think that's great.
That's cool.
I think that's a great sign to show that, you can be connected as a team on the court and still span multiple generations off it. And, they encourage the fans. They make the fans happy. They make the star players happy. These two guys are so important, Oso and Ryan, to what this team is, their identity going forward. And I just want to reiterate, like, not that I've heard anything out there, but they need to keep them in whatever form possible. Like whatever they're considering doing in the next 3 weeks, they can't lose those two guys for me. Or they just lose such a huge piece of who they are.
9 points in the last 3 games per game, 61% from the field, 57% from three in that time, 50% from the free throw line. Not a ton of free throws attempted for him in the last 3 games, obviously. But just hitting his shots and playing really well. And the big thing, and we both noted it, and, we even talked about it when we were at the games. He's developing in a lot of ways. I think there are two places you can say for sure he's ahead in his development. One of them is his 3-point shooting, because we genuinely thought if he shot 35% by the end of the year, it'd be a miracle. And he's probably going to end around there. I don't really know.
He's at 31, 32 right now.
So but we'll see.
I think we genuinely thought that he would shoot 20% on
Josh Okogie numbers.
Worse. Based on his college numbers, I thought there was a serious chance that Ryan was going to attempt 1-3 a game, and it would be a miracle if any of them went
Just
in.
Launching is a big deal. The fact that he's not afraid to shoot when he's wide open. But the second thing is he's catching it in the middle of the floor. They're using him as a screener. They're putting guys in the dunker spot, and he's making really quick decisions with the ball in the short roll. He's either shooting a floater, which I didn't know he had. Apparently we talked to Kellen. Yeah, spoiler, we met a bunch of journalists this week. But we talked to Kellen, and he was talking about how he had that in his game in college. It's something to look back on now and think about him doing that now in the NBA. But hitting that floater is big, but also the quickness with which he makes a decision in that, I think, is way ahead of the curve, because right now, I think you could almost make a case outside of the centers. I think Mason has done a good job. Oso has done a good job. Outside of the centers, he might be the guy that I trust the most in the short roll on this team so far.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to continue when they start to play better games and teams start to pick up that that's something that he's capable of doing and saw the scouting report and stuff like that. But really happy with that development so far.
Look, it's a small sample size, but 31 assists to 15 turnovers on the season.
Pretty good.
Points to a guy. I mean, compare that to, I don't know, rookie Josh Jackson or a lot of these guys who are, 3-and-D wings that you try and give them more reps on the ball and they just can't do it. They just don't figure it out. The fact that Ryan has a good ratio, again, small sample size, but that's a positive sign. It's a green flag. The other stat that I posted recently is about exactly what you're talking about, catching in the pick and roll and finishing. He has a 1.3 points per possession, according to Synergy, out of that play type, which is significantly better than any of the centers on the team. It's better than Oso. It's better than Mason. It's way, way, way better than Nurk, who's one of the worst in the league, and points to a guy who legitimately can thrive, not just as a catch and shoot player in your half-court offense, but who maybe can play 2 or 3 different roles, and that's a big deal for Ryan Dunn, who I think we really sincerely weren't expecting anything from offensively in his rookie year.
Let's talk about Brad. 5 games now coming off the bench. 17 points per game, 4 assists per game. 32 minutes
big deal
per game coming off the bench. So you can talk about anything you want as far as him coming off the bench and it changing his role, which clearly it has, but it hasn't really reduced the amount of minutes he's playing. It's basically exactly the same as it was before that. And look, they're 4-1 in those 5 games, which is a big deal. If you're going to choose Bud to choose a time to do it, where you can maybe give them a little confidence in it, he could not have picked a better stretch of the schedule to put him on the bench and try to give them some confidence in that lineup. But
I could not have picked a better slice of the schedule to come and visit. It was truthfully motivated by thinking if they can't beat these teams, they can't beat anyone. So yeah, he's been good. I think the fact that he's still playing 32 minutes is a really big deal, and for the most part has looked like he's played with a lot of confidence, has played with a lot of poise out there, is not being asked to do too much, and I think that's a big deal with Brad too. It's like even in the minutes where Book isn't on the floor, usually it's 2 of the 3 guys. I feel like we didn't see a ton of just Brad, did we? In the past few games?
No,
definitely
actually,
some, but most of the time.
More with even Tyus than I thought. Where they had times where they had Tyus, Book, and Brad on the floor. More than I expected they would do that. Maybe it's just not playing Nurk at all makes them more confident in trying to do that. I'm not really sure. Honestly, maybe there's some data that they have that, Nurkic is the one that sinks that based on their coverages or something like that. But they did that a little bit more than I expected. Quite a bit, actually, even with those 3 and Oso on the floor, which is just tiny. But they switched everything. Other than Tyus occasionally didn't switch when it was Oso.
Yeah.
But, I give him a lot of credit. There were times in the last 3 games that we were watching there in person where Brad was kind of carrying the offense. Whether it be the first quarter against Charlotte, He didn't score much after that first quarter, if you look at the stats, but they need somebody to come in and do that kind of thing. I do think it's kind of given him some sort of clarity or if anything, motivation. Like he wants to play well now because he knows everyone's watching. There's a spotlight on him. There's a magnifying glass, however you want to put it. People are watching. Every game he plays off the bench now. StatMuse is posting the stats or whatever. Bleacher Report is going to post a picture of him with the stats from that game. Like it's all happening now in a way that it wasn't before. Is it sustainable? Can they keep doing this? I don't know. What do you think?
Can they keep doing what? Winning or Brad playing well? Because those are two different things. Brad playing well
off the bench, and should they keep?
Yes.
Should they keep him coming off the bench?
Yes, of course. That's the easiest question. Should they keep him coming off the bench? Yes, of course. Even though I understand Tyus has struggled. You made a really funny, it wasn't even a joke. It was more of an observation. Can I say it?
Sure. I don't remember what it was, but sure.
Crazy, absolutely crazy in hindsight that this promise that the Suns made to Tyus Jones in free agency that he's going to start, which I understand why they had to do at the time, but that this ended up being more of a binding proposition than their promise to Bradley Beal that he's part of this big three. Essentially, that Bradley Beal has to go to the bench before Tyus Jones.
Yeah.
Even with Tyus Jones playing poorly this week. It really is wild. It really is wild. But here we are, and I don't think they're a worse team for it, frankly. So, yes, I think Brad should continue to come off the bench. I do think they can continue to succeed. It's a really positive sign that he is a positive plus-minus in these 5 games, that it's not just, he's getting his 17 points on good efficiency, but all of the good minutes are with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I do think a lot of the good minutes are with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But I think they have more of a chance to give Beal a fighting chance, I think, depending on, what sort of defensive-minded players they can pair him with.
If you think about, for me at least, if you think about Brad coming off the bench and the starters being who they've been, at least me, I expected it not to look anything like it looks. You expected Tyus to be handling the ball more. And weirdly, Brad comes off the bench now, and the ball has completely been turned over into Devin Booker's hands in a way that I just wouldn't have expected with that particular configuration of players. Now all of a sudden it's Devin Booker handling the ball more in a way that you would think, well, that's what they should do if Brad's on the floor, because Devin Booker's still looking for a shot, and I think actually looking for a shot more than previous to the season, because there's a lot of shots he was turning down that were kind of frustrating earlier in the season. He's still looking for that shot, but he's clearly, very clearly, the point guard on the team right now in a way that when you take Brad out of the lineup, you expect that to be Tyus. But it's just kind of fascinating the way it's worked out, and for the better. I think there's a difference between being a point guard that's good and fast and can make the right passes, and being a player who has a ton of scoring gravity that can also make the passes. It just makes a massive difference.
Advantage creation. I mean, I love what Tyus brings, but he doesn't bring advantage creation to this team. And every team that takes itself seriously as a playoff contender, which the Suns do, needs advantage creation. I have a very critical question for you on Brad.
Okay.
Just quickly.
Sure.
Because here's the thing. He's played well. They should keep bringing him off the bench. I think we both agree, obviously, in the way we've talked about in the past, Jimmy, if it happened, which I don't think it's going to happen, but if it did happen, is such a better fit. Even if Jimmy doesn't happen, I think there's something we've talked about, which is well, what if you can move Brad to another team just to get off the contract? Is there a level that he can play to, that he can raise his game to while still being on the bench, that would have you thinking, you know what, let's just let it rock?
It's a really good question. Because I think
what if he is Manu Ginobili?
Yeah, right?
Is it even possible? Yeah. Is there a best case scenario in there where somehow, some way, they make sense of all of this? It
just seems like 32 minutes a game. It's hard to argue against that, and Bud was there in San Antonio, he was there. He knows how it worked.
It's a good point, too.
Maybe he has a way to motivate them in that way. It's hard to say. I think it really would depend on what kind of moves they make around that, because they're still too small. They're still too small. They still need better centers, which we're going to talk about now going forward. But I don't know. So much of it, I think that there is, to me, I think I've sort of watched enough Ryan Dunn now in person where I'm like, oh, they need to keep Ryan Dunn. Like, in a way that I was like kind of waffling back and forth on what they should do about Jimmy Butler before, or what they should include with Bradley Beal to attempt to get rid of him, essentially, in order to make a Jimmy Butler trade possible. And now I'm just not feeling as high on that, just because, I don't know, it's just a weird situation for the team. What do you think? Is that something that you think he's capable of? Like, do you think
that Brad is capable of this being his long term? Like what we're talking about now, the prospect of like everything is fine and actually Brad is happy and he's playing 30 minutes a game and he's the sixth man of the year. It's a Cinderella story.
It seems insanely unlikely, though. You know, like that he's happy at the very least.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Brad's a weird dude, man. He was happy in Washington for 11 seasons. Yeah. They were good for one.
And the other thing I'll say that I want to give Brad credit for, again, I'm referencing all sorts of things that I picked up on outside of the basketball this week. Bradley Beal is a good dude. He is constantly, and we've criticized him on the other end of this because sometimes he's smiling in situations where he shouldn't be, right? Mm-hmm. There's a competitive spirit that, like, if you go back to getting swept by Minnesota last year, wasn't always there with Brad, at least not on his face. But when they're winning games like they were this week, he's having fun with fans. He's joking with them. Yeah. He's throwing them the ball and they're throwing it back and he's throwing it back to them again to say, give me a harder pass, just joking around. He's going up to the kids who are about to sing the national anthem and pretending that he's their conductor. He's just having fun. And again, you contrast it to the Nurkic situation. Yeah. It's like they're two entirely different people, but there are two complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of how they've reacted to the adversity. And there is something so admirable about Brad's spirit. I wish that sometimes he would take things a little more seriously, but on the other end, like, I can't help but kind of respect the way that he's reacted to this particular situation. And so I do want to believe, based on him being that type of person, that a long-term sixth man of the year role for Bradley Beal isn't completely off the table, and it would make a lot more sense if he made $20 million a year, just not 50, right?
Just, it does feel like an admission that it all doesn't work, though, right? But in a weird way,
it's an admission that it doesn't work if those are your three guys making $150 million. Yeah.
But when you're that far over the second apron, how do the salaries really matter at that point anyway? It's just all monopoly money. None of it really equates to what a normal team is at that point anyway, because the amount of money they're spending is nowhere close to what a normal team is in the first place. So, weird situation. I did say that part of it would depend on what they do around that team, right? Because I do think it still matters. If you're gonna make a real attempt at this, you have to find centers that work. And I will say, this was watching the team in person, and maybe I would have felt the same over this stretch, watching from home. But it really was a time where I'm like, can we just see it with real centers first? Can we just see? They don't even have to be great. Just improvements on what we have, including on Oso, who I like, but is not very good. Like, if you're ranking Oso against starting centers, like if he was starting in the NBA, he'd probably be last.
He's
or
the
close
worst.
To last.
If Oso would be the worst starting center in the league,
and that's okay. He's young. He's gonna get better. Like,
he shows flashes, but like, we just have to be honest about what he is right now. He cannot be thrust into that role.
So, can we look at it with real NBA centers and see how it looks? And we've got some slop. We got some slop over the last few days about...
Would you even call it that? It's like not very...
If it comes from Gambo, yeah. I think so. I think it counts.
It is definitely an occasion when Gambo does not immediately shoot down.
He gave us two names in this case. Nick Richards. We mentioned him on the podcast a few times. We got to scout him in person. Guess what? Not that good. Wasn't that good. When we saw him in person, it wasn't very good.
Well, just say the other guy.
Duop Reith is the other guy, which is pretty...
Both have been names mentioned on this pod. I'm not taking credit for it. It's not like we knew, but I'm just saying both of these are very obvious names, I think, among people in the know, in NBA circles, of who are guys who are cheap. This is what's important.
Yeah.
This is what's important. Look, we've talked about other guys too. We've talked about Valanciunas, who makes $10 million or whatever. But Nick Richards and Duop are cheap, and for their contracts are very capable.
Yeah.
You could talk about Nick Richards not actually being good. That's fine.
It's an improvement, I still think.
That's fine.
I really do.
For what he makes, he is good. And the funny thing about Nick Richards, the game that Charlotte won earlier this week
looked a lot better. Yeah.
He had 15 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. He had one of his best games of the season.
Against Nurkic.
I know.
That's important to point out.
I know. And then I wanted to see if he could do it again, and I got to see him in person, and the answer was no. He could not do it again.
And he was a negative on the floor for them pretty regularly.
I thought it was noticeable how unnoticeable he was, if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
I actively went...
Mark Williams was insane, too. So
I actively went into this game thinking, I'm going to watch a lot of Nick Richards, because I know the Suns are linked to this guy, and he was just not... It's like he wasn't there. So he had a game like he wasn't there. The truth is, that's going to be a lot of Nick Richards games if he comes to the Suns. The other truth is, he's still way more capable than anyone they have on the roster right now of catching a lob. And, I think he's 7 foot 250. I would have to double check that, but like he has legitimate size that they absolutely need right now. I think the question with Nick Richards is how many seconds, right? The Suns have 3 second-round picks they could send to Charlotte. If you send 3 second-round picks for Nick Richards, you're an idiot.
It's tough, yeah.
That's a
it's just
lot.
Not good enough.
That's a lot.
And he's expiring. That's kind of the situation that they're looking at where he's expiring. They have Taj Gibson. I'm not sure if Taj Gibson could last as like if he steps in and replaces all those minutes for them, but they have someone that can do it right now.
They 1 or 2. For Nick Richards, we could talk ourselves into that. 9 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, and 21 minutes per game. He shot 69% from the field last year. He's way down to 56% this year. A lot of that, as I pointed out to you the other day at the game, is because he's taking a lot more short floaters or short layups. Stuff in the like 5 to 7 foot range instead of pure stuff at the rim. Realistically, that's kind of junk that should probably be cut out of his game, and a serious team would say you are just here to dunk the ball and rebound the ball. And I think he could respond pretty well to that. Does he have the playmaking chops of Mason Plumlee or Oso Agudaro? He does not.
Definitely not.
He does not. But you know what? James Jones, I'm here to tell you, I know that's your type. Not every center needs to be that. And sometimes...
Give them some versatility at this point.
Yeah, sometimes we just need a guy who can dunk the ball. Nick Richards can do that. He can dunk the ball.
2 questions on this. Nurkic for Nick Richards and Grant Williams. We'll start there.
No picks?
How many picks would you be willing to put into that?
No, Nurkic for Nick.
Grant Williams is injured. Won't play the whole season. Like we don't really know for sure. It does work. I checked the salaries just now. Mm-hmm. It's at $18.025 million, and Nurk makes $18.125 million.
So Grant Williams tore his ACL.
Yeah.
So he's out for the season.
Yeah.
And he's under contract for two more years. Mm-hmm. If it were 1 more year, I'd say absolutely.
$13 million and $14 million after that. 13.6 and 14.2.
Getting off Nurkic would be a big deal for me. Can we do it without giving up the first-round pick? Because then I'd say yes.
So would you put all 3 seconds?
I don't want to do that. Can I do Nurkic in 2 seconds for Nick Richards and Grant Williams? I'd probably do that.
I would too, I think. I think that this is the kind of thing you're looking at with Nurkic, where you're giving them a year of more flexibility and you're letting them be a bad team and have the salary that you need to be a bad team. And then with Nurkic's contract, if the Hornets want to make a trade later, he's going to be expiring contract later, so they have the opportunity of trading him again in the future, maybe using one of their picks if they're actually going to make a move to try to be better. And, you take Grant Williams, he's not going to play this year, but you're getting off of Nurkic, and you have Grant Williams next year as a tradable salary. 1, I know there's 2 years left on his contract, or 2.
You're thinking maybe...
Can he play? I mean, he can play on this team. If he was healthy, he'd play on this team now.
Yeah, you're thinking in an ideal scenario if Grant Williams is back. Well, here's the truth, man. Grant Williams... He tore his ACL, in December, November? By the time he gets back, it's probably like maybe close to next year's trade deadline. So you're probably on the hook for Grant Williams all of next season, but maybe you go into the 3rd season when he's an expiring contract and he can play himself into some value. I guess you could talk yourself into that.
Yeah, and maybe he comes back early next season and you have... Yeah, we'll see how good he is. He probably won't be as good after a knee injury, but... And I don't know, how good was he before that? Like the Mavs got a lot better after trading him.
The Mavs went to the finals because they traded him.
But still, I mean, the Suns don't have a lot of big wings. And look, he's a big wing, maybe more in width than height, but they need width too. Especially if they end up having to trade somebody else, which I'll mention now. Josh Okogie for Nick Richards.
I don't want it.
It's
I don't want to do
the
it.
obvious trade there. Because I think you might be able to do that with 0 picks. Like, I think there's a good chance you might be able to just say...
What's in it for Charlotte?
Well, they have Josh Okogie, who can teach them a little bit of tenacity, and he's expiring. I don't know if that's enough for them. They have the opportunity to potentially resign because it's a team option next year for Okogie. So
the problem with that for me is
Okogie's better. Let's be honest. Okogie's better than Nick Richards.
You think, as an NBA player?
I think as an NBA player, Josh Okogie is a better NBA player than Nick Richards. The problem is, for the Suns, they need a Nick Richards more than they need a Josh Okogie because they have Ryan Dunn.
Is that true? Because they need dogs.
I know what you mean. This is why it's a complicated question.
They so frequently show no dog, no fight in their game, and getting rid of Josh Okogie the way he's played this season, and I know they specifically signed him to an extension where he was being paid more than he's worth so that they could trade him.
Yeah.
But it would still hurt me.
I know.
It would still hurt me. Josh Okogie has played so well. He's been such an important part of this team over the past 3 years in such a low-key way that it would pain me to trade him for someone as ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, insignificant as Nick Richards. Not a needle mover.
I would rather use the second-round picks to get off Nurkic and just keep Josh Okogie. I think that...
Let's talk about the other guy.
Okay.
The other guy we wouldn't have to trade Josh Okogie.
It's Duop Reath.
Yeah. Who's that? Ever heard of him?
Right. How many threes does he shoot per 36 minutes? It's like an insane number.
I'll pull it up.
I don't know if you have that, but Duop Reath is a center that plays. It plays for a team that has 4 centers on their roster at this point, I think, in Portland. So a very obvious trade candidate who makes 0. He makes nothing. He's on a minimum contract. I'm not sure. I meant to look this up before we started recording. The second apron allows minimum contracts to be moved. I haven't checked to see if the Suns have to send anything out. They might be able to just maybe send a second round
because they do have an open roster spot. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they can just take him into the roster spot and send a pick out. I'll try to find that out over the next day or two. Because they have picks. I don't know. I really like Duop Reath. He's not great.
Here's the deal with Duop Reath. For those who don't know, Duop Reath doesn't really play this season. He's a bench warmer. Last year, he played 68 games, including starting 20 games for the Portland Trailblazers, averaged 9 points per game. Not much of a rebounder, can occasionally block shots. But the big thing was he shot 36% from 3 on close to 4 attempts per game. And keep in mind, this is a low-usage guy who didn't play a ton of minutes. Per 36 minutes, which is what you were talking about earlier, most of his attempts are threes. So he's not what we were talking about earlier with Nick Richards, right? He's the other type of big that we know Coach Bud values. He could potentially be, and he's already 28 years old, so this would be another magical Cinderella story if this guy becomes something. But he could be Bud's Brook Lopez. He could be Bud's new Brook Lopez. He would be a guy who slots in, is constantly catching on pick and pops.
Walmart Brook Lopez, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But you give Duop Reath 20 minutes, and assuming he doesn't foul out, which would be important, he's out there taking 5 threes, and these are not Nurkic threes. He can actually make them. And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where it allows Oso to play power forward if he's playing next to a guy who can actually shoot, not a guy like Nurkic who can't shoot.
Yes, that would be huge.
It allows you instantly to become bigger.
You can play a big lineup.
You can play...
In the way that we thought Bull was going to be useful this season, Oso becomes...
You could play KD at the 3 and Oso at the 4 and Duop Reath at the 5, and suddenly you have a massive lineup of close to 7-footers in a way that they just did not have that lineup versatility before. Why doesn't he play right now? Well, it's complicated. Robert Williams was injured for a long time. DeAndre Ayton was supposed to be a big part of Portland's future, and I think 1 year into giving him that contract, they already have some level of buyer's remorse. Yeah. That's why they drafted another guy, Donovan Clingan, in the top 10, who obviously DeAndre Ayton is not a big part of their future if they're drafting Donovan Clingan, but now they have to play Donovan Clingan. And with all of these guys in their rotation, the obvious guy...
Clingan rocks, by the way, yeah.
Do like him, but the obvious guy to cut out was Duop Reath.
And, with his contract, that was obvious. Yeah, you're right. can I just mention on a tangent, when the news was out there that Nurkic was going to be benched, Portland Trailblazers fans decided to weigh in on that. And you know what they were doing? They were flexing Toumani Camara, which, yeah, he's been great this season, and he's been really, fun for them to watch. But just how sad it must be to trade for DeAndre Ayton. And when Nurkic, the guy you traded for him, gets benched, the guy that they're celebrating is Toumani Camara.
And not DeAndre
And not
Ayton.
their max contract center that's supposed to be carrying their team right now.
No.
And doesn't even go to games, doesn't buy a bed, is afraid of the ice or whatever. Like, it's just, for me, I was like, good for you. I'm happy you have Toumani Camara. I miss Toumani Camara, but this is sad, actually. You just don't see it.
It is sad. We might have to have a conversation pretty soon about James Jones, because something we've talked about is, can James Jones survive the next era of Suns basketball if they end up doing a rebuild and picks matter again? And something I don't think we've given James credit for, actually, is his draft record's looking pretty good right now. I'm entirely serious. I don't think I've given him credit for this in the past, but if you really analyze where he was picking from recently, the picks he was given, he was not given top 10 picks.
Yeah.
He's drafted Cam Johnson. Jalen Smith was a miss,
Yeah.
but even Jalen Smith became an NBA player,
He'd
which is
he'd
not
be
a guarantee.
starting on the Suns right now.
Is not a guarantee for a guy.
He'd be starting on this.
Not
team.
a guarantee for a guy who's taken, in the late lottery like Jalen Smith was. So he's taking Cam Johnson, Jalen Smith. Ty Jerome is now an integral piece of the 29 and 4
Sixth Man of the Year
Cavs,
candidate.
or whatever they are. Ryan Dunn and Oso both look good.
Yeah.
And Toumani Camara, a late second-round pick, looks good.
One of the best defenders in the NBA at the wing position.
So I think you could still make a case of, well, what would James Jones do if he ever had a top 5 pick? Would he actually take someone, with a star level ceiling who's not, immediately good, or would he just keep taking kind of low or high floor players?
Yeah.
But we can also be honest and say that just his strategy of taking high floor players
That's how you get the Clippers.
has for what the Suns have needed in
Yeah.
the past 4 or 5 years has mostly worked. So I do just want to be mindful of that since you brought up Toumani Camara.
Duop Reith, last season, of all the centers that played in Portland, the Trailblazers were at their best. Still bad when Duop Reith was on the floor. Because floor stretching bigs make a difference in the NBA. Put him on a good team. Is he a great player? Like, I don't want anyone to overthink what we're doing.
No.
here. He's not a great player.
We're talking about
He makes like $2.8 million.
We're talking about, can you get someone marginally better than Mason Plumlee in terms of fit for what the Suns need for a second-round pick? That's what we need. I mean, it's not what we need to win a championship, right? That's like the starting piece, the bare minimum to make you feel a little bit more confident about this team post-February.
I want to throw one more name at you. No slop from Gambo, at least yet. Rob Williams also plays for Portland. Makes like 13.5, makes a lot. Like more than the Suns really have to trade unless you trade Grayson Allen. Now, we'll go over the pros and cons of Rob Williams here. They're pretty easy to think about.
There's only one con.
Right, exactly. Because he's a good defender. He's a really, really good lob catcher. For a while there in Boston, he was the best lob catcher in the league by percentages. He can finish at the rim. Not huge, but like big enough to be a starting center. Cons. I'm not sure he has any cartilage in his knees.
He's played 53 games in the past 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now.
So, but here's my question. If you traded Grayson to a third team and they gave a first-round pickup for Grayson and you took the players that you were going to trade Grayson for and traded them for Rob Williams, now you end up with Rob Williams, no Grayson, plus a first-round pick.
So you're not giving up the first-round pick for Rob?
No. So you find a team that's willing to give up some young players that Portland might be interested in.
Oh, it's a 3-team. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you get a first-round pick from...
It sounds to me like you're hedging your bets. You're saying, I want Rob Williams in case he can stay healthy, but if he can't stay healthy, I still want to pick.
But then you lose Grayson, who's playing really well right now. And actually feels like an integral part of the team when he plays well.
He does. Part of me wonders, can you get two first-round picks for Grayson?
I don't think so.
Can you get 2 heavily protected first-round picks for Grayson that turn into like 8 second-round picks?
What team would do that? The only team that can is
the Magic. I don't know. That's
the only
who I've
team
talked
that
about in the
can
past.
is OKC, and they didn't even give up one for Alex Caruso. Like they just continue to do stuff like that. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're gonna. But the question still stands.
I think Rob Williams at his best massively changes what this team can do.
He would be by far in short stints as far as Nick Richards, Duop Reith, Rob Williams. They would look awesome. Rob Williams kind of does everything that you need a center to do on the
I think
Suns.
he could boost their offensive rating by 5 points and lower their defensive rating by 5 points.
Yeah.
But that only is if he stays healthy.
Right, and it just wouldn't be long enough, right? I just don't. I wouldn't do it. I'll just say that. He has 1 year left in his contract. It's next year. It's $14 million. So you have the opportunity to keep him for 2 years. You'd basically be rolling the dice and saying, let's look good for 15, 20 games a season and then be sad for the rest of it. I don't think I'd do it. It's tough. The Suns really can't afford to do that. If it's Nurkic that you're getting off of, I think I would do it. But getting rid of a player like Grayson, who, if the Suns attempt to be good this season, which I think they are, they're going to keep trying to be good regardless of the situation or how bad it looks at times. Grayson's going to be too important. If you're trading Grayson, you have to get someone that's a little bit more of a guarantee, I think.
Yeah.
Although I know you like the first round pick trades for Grayson, so I had to throw that one at you.
Well, I do, and I honestly I still think I'm going to be of two minds about it all the way up until February. Like I'm sorry if that makes me indecisive.
No, I feel the same way. Actually, I didn't before, but now I kind of do.
I really think you can go either way on Grayson right now, where maybe you sell high and you start thinking about your future, or maybe you label this guy as a really important piece of a playoff team this year. And regardless of what it is, I don't think it's necessarily wrong.
Where are you at with Jimmy right now? How you feeling?
Is that the last thing we're tackling today?
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
I continue to feel like I am over him, and it's not because I don't recognize his basketball talent, and it's not even because, kind of like with Rob Williams, I'd be worried about his health, but that's not even the reason why with Jimmy. The reason why with Jimmy is because I think I don't like the way he's. This sounds very boomer of me, but I'm not a huge fan of the way he's conducting himself through this process. And I think basketball is second right now to all of the inner politics of the contract negotiations between him
his
and
feelings about Pat.
And his agent, and his feelings about Pat Riley. And I think case in point, I'm pretty sure I brought this up, but only on Patreon. So this is the first time I'm saying it on the main feed. If Jimmy was serious about winning, which is what he needs to be in order for me to buy into his future with potential future with the Suns, then I need him to not be out there saying, don't trade me to Milwaukee, don't trade me to Memphis, don't trade me to teams that are objectively better than Phoenix right now. It's the fact that he and his agent have so clearly carved out this path towards Phoenix, which makes me believe that they see Matt Ishbia as a mark. As a doofus.
A guy who will throw money at problems no matter what.
Exactly.
The Suns aren't good, I'll throw money.
And honestly, if I were Matt, I would be offended by the notion that they think you're the only dumb guy who's going to commit more money to this guy for 3 years who's about to turn 36.
I am at the
I'd
point...
be turned off by it.
I look, I just recorded with Ethan Skolnick, a Heat reporter, I talked to him about Jimmy Butler for a while. It was kind of interesting to hear their perspective. He told a story of James Jones and Jimmy Butler seeing each other in the hallway when the Suns were in Miami, their last game in Miami on that road trip that they were on, and how excited they were to see each other. And they were like, they really like James Jones there, right? So it's kind of an interesting perspective because they kind of view James Jones as a legend to them, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, they're
trying to think if there's even a Suns equivalent. I guess there isn't because we haven't won championships.
I don't know who it would be, Channing Frye or something like that.
PJ Tucker.
At least Channing Frye was on a good team. Or I don't know, Mikal Bridges maybe. That's obviously better than James Jones ever was, but it's just one of those things. And it's just really interesting to hear their perspective. I was kind of.
What does Ethan want them to do? Because I know he's a Heat guy.
I didn't get that from him. It just seems like they just don't want Bradley Beal. And everything that's come out since the last time we recorded is two things. The Heat say no to Bradley Beal, and the Suns are desperate for Jimmy Butler. Like, that's the two things I think we know for sure at this point. The Suns really, really want Jimmy Butler.
And Jimmy Butler wants the Suns.
Yeah.
I believe that too.
Yeah, that's
but I think he wants the Suns for the wrong reasons. I think people desperately want to convince themselves that Jimmy Butler wants Phoenix because they want to believe that Phoenix is awesome, which I'm here right now. I'm having a great time. Y'all got a great city. But I don't think it's that with Jimmy. I think he wants that money.
I do think he thinks that they could be really good too. Like, I think it's mostly money motivated, but I also think there's a little bit of, I want to be somewhere that wants me, that kind of thing. Bradley Beal, I think, was like that too. You know, all the way back to Eric Gordon in 2011. You know, players just want to feel that way, and that's just how it is.
Oh
sometimes.
my! Somebody called the national weather. Yeah.
Jimmy Butler his suspension is over Friday, so he's supposed to come back and play on Friday, and that's a home game in Miami. And they're looking at that game right now based on my conversation that I just had with him, and they're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is he going to have orange hair, orange tattoos, orange leg sleeves, like who knows, purple hair at this point? I don't know.
Is that a must-watch League Pass game
it
for
might
Suns
be.
fans?
Yeah, it might be. Look, because I'm a little different of a place than you with Jimmy Butler right now, where I just think if you can trade Bradley Beal for him, you should do it. I am less inclined to say to include anything else maybe other than the 2031 pick right now. But I waffle back and forth on that too. I think there's a world where they're pretty good with Jimmy Butler, KD, and Devin Booker. And maybe you have some flexibility with Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen's contract and, you know, find some ways to improve on the margins. It would be hard.
I have a crazy question. I don't even know if this is legal. This is not me. I haven't vetted this. I'm just throwing it out there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What if you trade for Jimmy and you say, yeah, Jimmy, we'll extend you. And he rejects his player option.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, psych.
Good luck signing out any free agent.
And you get off $50 million, and he gets to go sign wherever.
Brooklyn. Only one team with.
And you're out of the second apron. And instead of Jimmy, you don't have to worry about losing your picks anymore going forward, and you have, I don't know, a mid-level exception or whatever. Do you ever sign a free agent again? How much would that hurt their reputation, I guess? Because that would be an unprecedented move. I'm just kind of curious.
You definitely won't. I don't know that you would get... Yeah, I don't know that you would get a client. Bernie Lee, is that his agent? I don't know that you would get a Bernie Lee client ever again. You know what I mean?
I would love nothing more than for Matt Ishbia to stand up to big bad Bernie Lee,
like Robert Sarver
and say you think you can play us like a fiddle? Psych! Yeah. Your guy's not getting a dime from me.
It's not happening. Just trade Brad for whatever you would do in that 3-team trade. Then at that point, you know, just do that. One thing I will say about Jimmy that I did not like. Katie's friend, Eddie, your friend, online, loves your tweets, was on a podcast recently, and he was talking about the situation. And the man was leaking stuff, like he was just saying, yeah, they have all these different 3-team trades. Some include Chicago, some include yada, yada, yada. He was mentioning all these teams that he's saying Miami has turned down. And then at the end of it, he said something like, you know, I'll say this, if the Suns don't pull it off and find a way to land Jimmy Butler, I'm not sure what their team's going to look like in 3 weeks. Implication being KD's going to ask out, what Booker's going to be mad. I don't know. You know, he didn't really expand beyond that, but boy, did that make me just go, fuck all of this. You know, like, what are we doing then? Like, you know what? If that's it, you have to trade an untradeable player who has a no trade clause to a team that doesn't want him. Otherwise, we're going to nuke the entire team. No, I'm sorry. It's just not a situation that I want to be in. It made me go, why even do this now at this point? If this is how much control that already, honestly, Jimmy Butler has over the team from somewhere else, what's going to happen when he gets here? And look, I still think there's a world where I'm happy with the Jimmy Butler trade. Like, I'm going to keep saying that because I think that team is actually really interesting, and I think it would be kind of fun to watch them when they're good and when he plays for the 50 games he plays every year. But it did really just turn me off to the idea of going, look, you have a team with Kevin Durant. He's going to have a lot of control over the organization.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
That's going to be clear no matter what.
Yeah. He also has to have some faith.
But, you know, Jake Fisher also said KD wanted Nurkic. So, like, what are we doing here? Are we going to really let him run the team here if he's the one that wanted Nurkic and Nurkic can't even get on the floor?
Look, players like KD, even players of Jimmy's caliber, have always kind of gotten what they've wanted, if we're honest. And I think it's a very natural human thing that here they are 15, 16, 17 years in, and their assumption is that things are going to continue to roll the way they always have. The problem is they're not as good as they used to be.
Yeah.
And that's, again, where Matt is the decision maker ultimately, and James too, depending on how much power Matt gives to James. But Matt is ultimately, he's the one who has the final say, and he gets to decide just how much control these superstars get to have over his organization. I would just say, first of all, things are looking pretty good in the past week. Let's not lose sight of the fact that they're on a 3-game winning streak. Let's hope for the best going forward on this road trip. There's a chance they turn this whole shit around. But
yeah, and honestly, somebody like KD, if they win 8 games in a row or whatever, maybe his mind will change as well. Maybe he's more willing to not hold them hostage in the way that he is currently. But
yeah, but you also don't have to be an apologist for bad basketball, which is largely what they've been playing this year. They're 500, but they still have an not under 500, but a negative net rating.
Yeah,
something like 19th, 20th in the league, and. Yeah, you don't have to let yourself be held hostage by that.
Yeah.
You don't have to let yourself be threatened by that.
Yeah.
You have at any point the ability to abandon ship and hit the nuke button.
Call an ambulance
and
for you.
I would just continue to say to Matt that, I really hope that things work out for this team in the next few weeks and that we see this sustained positive momentum that gives us more faith in what they can do in the playoffs this year. But
yeah.
You hold the cards.
Yeah.
And
you and Brad.
And you don't need to double all the way down on this, man. I just would pressure him to think about if that's really the smartest decision.
It's very clear that's what he wants to do at this point. It's just very clear. I think we have no doubt. How would you rate the hot dogs?
For the price, a 10 out of 10.
All right. Who's your favorite media member that you met this week?
My favorite media member that I met this week.
Let's go through them all.
No,
Kellen.
That's okay.
We met him before. Gerald. Steven.
Steven from PHNX. Awesome dude.
Damon. You met Damon today,
I'm going to give Damon Allred a shout out because Damon Allred is the only guy working the Valley Suns games, and he fucking rocks.
Yeah.
He works for Arizona Sports, obviously in a capacity covering mostly ASU. Yeah. He also covers all the G League games for Bright Side of the Sun. You should check out everything he does there. He takes his job super seriously. He's grinding from the bottom all the way to the top. I love all the people I met this week. Some awesome people.
Next time I'll try to get Wheezy to come over.
I would love to. We were actually talking about Wheezy. I would love Wheezy as a podcast host. I don't know if anyone has his contact information, but
as a guest,
low-key, I think that guy's a legend. He's been at it for over a decade.
It's pretty amazing. It was amazing. Particularly, we saw back-to-back games, and dude was out there doing his thing again. On the next day,
I don't know how he you think about the players have 20 hours and then they got to get back up again. Wheezy's out here. I would lose my voice.
He's screaming his lungs out.
I would lose my voice easily. So yeah. Dude's awesome.
What's your favorite place you went to in Phoenix over the last week?
That's hard, man.
What's the best bird you saw? That's another one.
The best bird I saw, I'm a birder, for anyone who doesn't know. Vermilion flycatcher I saw today was super cool. Also, the lovebirds that you guys have, because they're basically parrots that you can find in a
Wild
store.
Parrots. I didn't even know
parrots.
that.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm telling Mike about birds I've seen this week, and he's like, "Yeah, I didn't know that existed." It's you've lived here for a long time. Best place I saw. I mean, I love the Botanical Garden. I've been there before in terms of tourist places. Cool. Art museum's really cool too, and just in terms of touristy places again. Man, there's a lot of food things that we didn't get to cross off.
What about
here.
Footprint Arena?
Footprint Center. Footprint Center was great. There's a lot of food stuff that we didn't get to cross off here, and I hope we can go next time. I need some more good Mexican food.
Some bad Mexican food, because you pitched the idea of Filiberto's.
I've never been. So I want some more good Mexican food. I want some more bad Mexican food. I love everyone's recommendations on that. Also, I need to get some fry bread next time I'm down here.
That's right. Maybe we'll have time tomorrow.
Have never had fry bread, so that's another one to check off the list for me. But it's been awesome.
6 games you've seen here in Phoenix.
All-time record.
6 victories.
6-0.
6-0.
6-1 if you count one loss for the Valley Suns.
You've never left Phoenix with the Suns being under 500.
Sure.
Well, they have a game tomorrow, though. You're not leaving yet, so we'll see how they do tomorrow. But yeah, happy to record with you in person. It was a good time.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.